Oh boy. Hi everyone. This has been one hell of a World Cup. We all know the result by now. If you've been watching the report, you would have seen that of course England have won their World Cup in Australia convincingly, and thanks to yet again Ben Stokes, accompanied by Adil Rashid's bowling, Sam Curran's bowling. Really, the overall bowling in it was outstanding. They fielded particularly well, except for a few mishaps. They were excellent. England, they basically throttled, strangled, or choked. Not they didn't actually. Pakistan didn't choke, but England choked them in this case, unlike South Africa who choked themselves. It certainly has been a long campaign, but a very fruitful one for England. England thoroughly deserved it. They were probably the better side throughout the competition, to be honest with you. Rather quiet with their movements. They didn't lead their group. New Zealand did. New Zealand appeared to have the upper hand, but when England played New Zealand, they gave them a nice old shellacking, and that was enough evidence to say what they would do from that point on. So we saw them play, of course, against India and then Pakistan, and beating them both very easily, batting second, fielding first, and quite frankly, working out exactly what they had to do, which was keep to their guns, keep to their so-called strengths. And clearly, one of their strengths is their batting, and their strength in the bowling is not necessarily one outstanding bowler. They all bowled quite well. Sam Curran to me was outstanding. He took 3 wickets today. Ben Stokes bowled well. Adil Rashid took two. Both Wokes and Jordan also chipped in. Jordan Christian was particularly impressive. They didn't include Mark Wood. There was some concern about not including. Well, they did the right thing because if he wasn't fit, they had players who were more than capable of taking his place, namely Chris Jordan and obviously Wokes as well. And realistically, England showed a great deal of panache about the way they went their victory. They're clearly very seasoned players under the captaincy of Josh Butler. Josh Butler has proven to be a worthy replacement for Alan Morgan, and he will now prove to be a long-term solution to that position. And he led by example, which is the best way to lead a team. He did everything on song. Really, they really did shock me on how controlled they were with their victory. The fact they got none of 170 against India in that previous innings was just phenomenal. So we've already got extra final moments on all the broadcasts. It's quite incredible. But look, you got to take your hat off to England. You've got to take your hat off England. They did very well. We're going to have a debrief eventually. I'm going to try and get a hold of a few people. I know that some people aren't available now, but we'll get Chris Vernon to come on Tuesday, which is a few days' time, to come and talk to us about his thoughts, not just on England, but also on the way that Australia, South Africa, New Zealand played, how they fared, and ultimately then the demise of both India and Pakistan in the last throws. And look, you got to give it to Pakistan. They made it to the final. They certainly didn't play their best cricket, but they went into the final. So pretty impressive that you can make it to an actual final of a World Cup and not necessarily play your best form. And they are a tremendous side, though. Harris Ralph, the feeling that he possessed during that last stage was just amazing. I was very, very impressed with his fielding. I thought it was just an outstanding effort on the way that he fielded. So good on him. He was superb, very much a superb player. Australia is a joke nowadays. Yeah, well, I'm not going to say too much about that at this point. I think they've got to overhaul their team dramatically and quickly, and they can't afford to use the excuse that they've got players that are still good there. Well, they're no longer that good. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Steve Smith shouldn't be in the squad. Aaron Finch's days should be numbered. He should be resigning from the captaincy permanently. I think he basically has, without officially saying it. Matthew Wade, despite having had a previously good World Cup, was also shown wanting, especially in captaincy. Then you've got Stark, And I would argue Pat Cummins as well. He was pretty ordinary throughout the series. I think barely even knew he was there. Only really Adam Zampa was the only person who holds his head up high in that format. In fact, he's the leading wicket taker for Australia, which kind of proves the point that he's worthy of being there because he's the only one taking wickets. Um, Hazelwood's been commendable. He did well in the IPL early this year and hence has played pretty well in the T20. But Cummins, Stark, certainly not Richardson either. He was awful. Matt Mott's got 2 cups in less than 2 years. Well, there you go. That says it all, doesn't it? Henry Hunt made 71 yesterday. Still picking Harris. Was just Australia's a joke. Yeah, Marcus Harris is a real joke. He shouldn't be in the selection process. He basically was. He failed. He's failed at the level, Australian level. He should not be given another chance until he proves himself, which he hasn't. So, yeah, I totally agree. But Matthew Mott, he's very happy. He's won a Women's World Cup. He's won a Men's T20 World Cup, and he must have had an influence as well. I think a steadying influence and a killer instinct. Which look, England had so many so much firepower. They haven't even used Liam Livingstone, and Moeen Ali and Ben Stokes knew exactly what to do. Ben Stokes scored 50 for God's sake. He continues to win important matches. He basically won them the last World Cup that was in the 50 over World Cup that was in England 3 years ago, and he's done it now with this. He's won Test matches at Edgbaston through his own efforts. He's a consummate expert in winning matches from behind it. And people said he wasn't doing much this year, but he did it when it most counted in the final, scoring 50 runs. And I mean, obviously, he supported the likes of Josh Butler, who did brilliantly as well. And then Butler and Hales did well in the semi-final, so you can't knock him. And even Harry Brooks looked pretty good too, I must say. Salt, he didn't quite assault the bowling, but he was there. It's impressive. I'm waiting for people to come. I'm not sure that they're all coming on deck. They should be. We've got a very interesting. So again, for those that haven't heard, England has won the ICC Men's T20 World Cup for 2022, having now knocked off Australia from that mantle, who won it in 2021. So England won it, and they won it with great, you would argue, relative ease. They knocked off India very easily and Pakistan to go through to the final and win that final. So, New Zealand couldn't handle Pakistan. South Africa couldn't even handle the Netherlands, and Australia couldn't handle anyone. They were beaten comprehensively by New Zealand, and they only really stumbled around after that. And they almost got beaten by Afghanistan. Very ordinary. They've come back to discussion about power plays. Power plays have been important all the way through. India failed in the power plays. Pakistan failed in the power plays today. England without Wood still controlled the Australia. It just looked like Chris Woakes knew what to do. Ben Stokes knew what to do. Adil Rashid was phenomenal. I mean, shut up. Khan didn't play too badly. They could have easily had Usman Khadir in his place as well. So, there's a lot of strengths there in the England squad. Look at them. They've got Butler and Hales has come back, which has just been a great stroke. They've still got Jason Roy in the backdrop there. Milan, who's scored centuries in all 3 forms of cricket, that is T20, 50 over, and Test. Then you've got Harry Brook, who's very impressive too. Salt hasn't quite come yet to the fore, but he's there and thereabouts. But then then you start to work through this amazing batting order. Stokes, Moeen Ali, Liam Livingstone, Sam Curran. It's just a relentless batting lineup, quite frankly. And Bairstow wasn't even there. So it just shows England really have got the calibre they know how to win games. They've got a very all-round game going on there, and they deserve to be the winners. Australia, on the other hand, have lost Glenn Maxwell for 8 to 12 months with this broken leg, which must have been very nasty or very awkward because it seemed that they had to operate on it too. Did it break the skin? Maybe it was a more than an average break. We're picking a worse coach. Australia has. Andrew McDonald hasn't proven to be as good as they would have liked. Langham was not much good either. We should have kept Matthew Mott, for God's sake. It's bizarre. Australia's coaching dilemma, I mean, even with Darren Lehman, he was a nice bloke, but he was a bit too casual in the end. I think Australia needs to really look at their coaching. Well, I think that's a very good point. But they need to look at their selections. I mean, George Bailey he's a commendable guy. I do like George Bailey, but I don't think he's been selecting very well as far as the players are concerned. Aaron Finch now has to move on. There's no doubt that Steve Smith shouldn't even be in the frame, nor should Sark and Cummins or Wade. There's already a number of them that should be out of the squad there. Mitch Marsh is also questionable now. Maxwell's injured, so he's out of the equation for a long, long time, at least majority of the year. So that's quite sad. Well, David, you must be very happy.
No, very good. Yeah, just a shame about Shahid not being able to bowl those last 2 overs. But that happens in a game, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
It showed that you didn't need that many more runs.
Look, Pakistan tried very hard towards the end. That Harris Ralph fielding effort was amazing. He incredible dive on the boundary there. Look, I'm pretty happy with Pakistan. I think they were just beaten by a better side that knew exactly how to win and knew exactly how to control their run getting. It was just incredible. England bowlers, really, Wokes, Jordan, obviously Abdul Rashid, Sam Curran, they all were on the number, and Stokes as well.
Yeah, no, they had a plan. I think they're well led. They look. And looking at the quotes at the end of the game, I think they're just given the freedom to play. Whereas you looked at Australia in particular, there was a tension seemed to be on the field all the time. Yeah. They were looking, obviously when you're a host nation, that's not easy, and it's happened to England in various other sports, particularly the Rugby World Cup. So yeah, and they've played some really good cricket recently. There'll be times when they lose series from time to time, but they're if you look at the 1 to 11, the strength of batting, variation of bowling. Moeen Ali hasn't bowled a ball basically. So
incredible.
Yeah, so I know they were desperate to get Livingston back onto the pitch. Obviously desperate to get Stokes back on the pitch and Butler. So guys in the last 6 months who've had some injuries, they just managed to get them back fully fit, which sadly for Pakistan didn't happen with Shahid right at the critical moment, really, because he's one of their major bowlers.
Yeah.
So I think that the wickets were not necessarily straightforward, which I think that some way helps England to a degree. Swung a little bit, but it allied pitching the ball up, which actually sometimes on some of the wickets that wasn't the right way to go. But they all had variations, so I'm not prone to make big statements about sort of how they will do. But looking at the strength of other teams, I always thought that as long as they didn't panic about people using the word favourite, that they would get to this point, which is fantastic.
Oh, look, it was well deserved. The way they in a very calculated manner knocked off India and Pakistan at the end, it was a very clear message. Win the toss, which they luckily did. Throw the opposition in the bat, squeeze them dry, not allow them to get too many runs, and then ultimately be in complete control when they bat. It's just the perfect scenario.
I wouldn't say they were at Adelaide, but I do think you've got to look at India. Bumrah is such a huge player for them in terms of pace, variation. He is an X-factor bowler. Everybody around the world recognises that. So you take him out of the equation. I thought that the Indian seamers, apart from that last game where they were probably as inaccurate as they've ever been during the whole tournament, then they did a good job trying to go back. Because I still would have picked the wrist spinner. I didn't quite see Axer, and he's obviously a very good cricketer, and I'm not knocking him, but you need X-factor bowlers, and Owen Morgan start with, and now they throw the ball to Rashid when they need a wicket. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but he is an X-factor bowler, basically. So,
well, Pakistan have Shadab Khan, who was very good, but they've also got Usman Khadir there on the sideline, who is an X-factor spin bowler as well, and it's a pity they didn't use him in that last match. It may have made a difference as well. But yeah,
Their weak link is the bloke that signed for Gloucestershire. Well, not weak link. He's a fantastic prospect in terms of Nazim Shah, but he has the tendency to wilt under pressure. And that first over from him was, then that put Pakistan behind the 8 ball. Suddenly, England are 20 for no wicket after 2 overs. Well, Hales got out, but that's why I wouldn't have necessarily agreed with Reggie's comment about, they're just going to go out there and tee off. They might have tried to do that if Hales had lingered, but I think, there's some serious bowlers around with a new ball. So,
oh yeah. So Munchie's online. He's rubbing it in. He's saying go England. We know that. We know who won Munchie. You don't have to remind us. It's all right.
We have been watching. So.
Can I just turn? I want to move away from England's victory because they're well deserved. We'll talk about that more at length. But the Australian selections that they made, if you were in the helm of Australian Cricket Australia and you had the people that we have got, what would you see as the obvious changes to that squad?
I think they've got to look at whether or not the test match attack is suited to T20. Now it might be suited to 50 overs because that's entirely different game. But I'm not sure whether it's suited to that sort of thing. And they just, and it happens in sport, Norman. They just looked a bit over the top, basically. Whereas the other sides were peaking at the right time. They just look tired, really. So I think for whatever reason, they played a lot of cricket or whatever, or the burden of being host nation. They just looked a bit jaded, really. So,
Stark and Cummins in particular have lessened their brand by playing too much T20 cricket. I think, at least for Australia, they have.
I think you've got to look at. And I know the 2 players involved weren't exactly keen on the idea, but the way that England have managed Broad and Anderson and treated them as red ball bowlers, one, extended their careers, which they both now recognise. But then I think the key thing of what Strice has done and Morgan and Root was obviously part of it, is to separate the two games and end up with 2 different sets of coaches. And, there are people who are going to do both, but then you've got to manage them. They'll have to manage Stokes in terms of workload. Yeah. And, he didn't bowl masses. And I think it's more of an impact on 50 overs, which I think he's retired from, actually. So,
but you can't take Stokes away from a big moment. When it's the final, he comes to the fore. He's done it again in this match. He bowled well and he got 50. I mean, what more can you want from the amazing?
He's and he had to go through that thing with Brathwaite, the final in just 2016 when Brathwaite hit all those sixes. That was hard to live with that. So. Yeah, he is a big match player, and he's a little bit like Maxwell. Maxwell hadn't really got any runs until he got to the latter stages. I heard you saying that he was injured. What's the matter with him, Norman?
Well, he broke his leg quite badly, needing an operation in a backyard incident at a friend's birthday party.
Here we go. That's like Bairstow falling off a golf tee.
Yeah. Well, he's apparently out from 8 to 12 months.
Where is he? Right.
It's quite a serious injury, which
that sounds we're getting coming back again from that. Motion.
Yeah. How are you, Motion? You must have a lot to answer here about. The reality is you've seen the subcontinent sides do very well throughout the main part of the tournament. But when it counted most, they've lost. But in the semi-final and final. What do you think, Motion? Motion can't hear, I don't think. Let me look. Can't hear, okay. Speak, Motion. Say something. Say something. No, we can't hear you. Maybe disconnect and reconnect. Disconnect and reconnect. All right. Yeah. But it seemed to me that it was going to be a subcontinent effort. But I mean, the reality is England know exactly how to play in Australia now. They know the conditions very well, and they played accordingly. They played particularly well. They really, maybe it was a Matthew Mott influence as well, but they seem to really know
Well,
what they were doing.
again, clever move by them. Probably English qualified coaches probably weren't too impressed, but to get somebody like Hussey and Saker, they know the wickets. So,
Most can hear us now.
Yes, I can. Congratulations, David.
It's all right.
Boys have done it. Double world champions.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that title. Well, we've had a spate of World Cup finals actually, Motion. So we had the women's rugby union, which went down to the final play, and they got pipped at the post then. Then rugby league. Well, I don't know whether you saw it, Norman. The game between
make the final. It didn't make the finals.
But New Zealand versus Australia was an extraordinary. They're saying it's the best game of rugby league that's been seen in the UK. And then for England to lose their semi-final against Samoa, having beaten them 66 in the first game of the tournament.
How was that possible?
Well, the grand prize that Samoa had one practice before they actually played that match. And it also was a whatever they called it, magic point. First to drop a goal. And then they've got the wheelchair rugby league final as well, which has been an extraordinary game to watch. So yeah, there's been a few
finals, few sporting finals.
Yeah.
Almost. He's starting to gloat. He's starting to gloat.
Pakistan needed that many more, another 20 or whatever. But you obviously they needed to take wickets. So to lose, and some of the bowling figures made remarkable recoveries because the guy that Gloucester signed, Nazim Shah, he flew around the park to start with. And they all, and I, you may think that I would say that Sam Curran is definitely the bowler of the tournament in terms of where he bowled. Definitely. What I would say is actually the all-round player of the tournament. I would say Shadab is probably the all-round player because he got runs, and his spells of bowling have been brilliant because they've kept
fielding and that run out.
And it's just a good all-round cricketer, isn't he? So,
but hang on a minute. We've got to give credit where credit's due. Virat Kohli's performance was outstanding with the bat throughout the series.
Yeah, true. Not wrong.
I challenge that actually, Norman. I think he played an incredible innings against Pakistan, down to 2 shots basically. But I do think, and the point was made by Michael Vaughan in social media, that actually India have gone at a pace as if they're saying, right, we'll bat for 10 overs and see where we're at. And then we'll hit the accelerator. Most sides have got people who can take it. They if they hadn't had the run out against Bangladesh, they could have easily lost that game.
Absolutely.
That was smashing them to all parts.
I agree. At Kohli's 15 last in semi-final on 40 rocks, I think that probably, I would say, if he would have matched Pandya hittings, they would have scored nearly 180 instead of just mid 160. So I don't think it was that crash hot innings. I mean, I know it's 50 at the end of the day, but he took 40 odd rocks to get 50, and then he got out. Whereas Pandya got 28 balls to get them going, but he didn't contribute as expensively as he should have. But I think the players of note, obviously, Sam Curran, his bowling's been fantastic. He's proving that deadly with white ball, not just on it, been really, really good. And I think he's answering the so he's been
Norman's fallen off his chair motions.
I reckon he's had one too many.
He has.
He's
Now
now
we
mute.
can't hear him. So
He's mute.
you're on mute, Norman.
I know. Okay. Now, look, I'm going to say this again. You're being a bit hard on Virat Kohli. I think KL Rahul and Sharma were a lot less. They were inappropriate with their.
Yeah, he had to probably back that pace because he had to repair the damage. If you look at KL Rahul, who was an absolutely fantastic player, but the way he got out against England, that was a really poor shot.
It was.
Oh, Dravid is taking the brunt. He's been granted a leave for next tour, and that's coach.
He's done what? What's been granted?
Dravid has been granted leave for next tour, and Lakshman been handed over the coaching reins.
Do you think he's under pressure, Motion?
I think so. I think there's a lot of media around getting Sharma out from 2020 and Dravid out. They reckon
both Sharma and Dravid.
The Indian media is saying Dravid's been too friendly with the players. He's not like, the old school master. He's been too soft.
So what was Shastri's relationship with Kohli then? Was that not friendly?
Shastri and Kohli been together. They were good, but then Shastri's old school. You know Shastri quite well.
Yeah, no, I know Ravi. Yeah.
So Ravi's like old school. He goes harsh when he needs to go harsh. But Dravid is very soft spoken person. He's very mellow. I think his approach is not the old school one.
The only witness I've seen, Motion, is him dealing with the under-19s, and he is a fantastic bloke to talk to about the game. But he had a whole group of other coaches, skills coaches, who worked the players one-to-one. I just got the feeling, I might be wrong, but they were the ones who actually delivered the hard words.
True.
And I think Dravid's a bit like a Trevor Bayliss, like a Duncan Fletcher. They don't say a lot unless there's a group of players that they're dealing with. But to be involved coaching India when they're not winning everything, it's got to be the hardest job of all time, really.
And the criticism is, since IPL 2007, India hasn't won 2020 Cup. They haven't, being IPL owners and being the biggest franchise cricket owners, they haven't won 2020 Cup since 2007. So that was another thing that Indian media has been harping about. What's the IPL doing? Why are players not allowed to play other leagues and whatnot? And you've read Dravid's statement that he's defended it, and he's rightly so. He's saying it's right. All the other leagues are right in the middle of the cricket season.
I think India's making the same mistake as Australia. They've held on to Aaron Finch, Wade, and brought in test bowlers like Stark and Cummins in too much. And India have done almost the same thing. They haven't allowed a true T20 formula to merge.
Well, one of the guys they massively missed, Norman, was Jadeja.
Yeah.
Duncan Fletcher said he was probably, when he had a spell as India coach, he thought he was the most valuable player in the world in terms of what he brings to the stage. And he would contribute in everything. Their catching, fielding. All right, his left arm spin is, it's good. He's mentally strong, and his batting also, he can slog it out the park. And I think India probably batted in a manner where they were slightly worried about the tail, because if you were to compare sort of 6 down of India against India in England, for instance, Rashid was coming in at number 11, and then he can bat Rashid.
Exactly.
So I think if you have length of batting, I think subconsciously to the blokes up above that they'll take a few risks because they know that somebody's coming in behind them. So and some sides didn't have that, and that's always I think that is always a slight problem with Australia. That actually after Gilchrist, who was a phenomenal match winner at 7. Just don't have that strength of tail. I think they can all bat. Cummins can bat or whatever, but is he reliable?
Well, his captaincy's taken away from his batting. Pat Cummins' captaincy has made him bat not. I think once did he bat well as captain. Since then, he's fallen apart. So it has put pressure on him for sure. All right, so Moses, your Afghanistan side, despite not progressing too far in the tournament, still impressed me immensely. The way they played against Australia in that game they lost, they fought to the very end. There was no giving up there. They really fought, and I was very impressed.
The way they bowled, their seamers bowled at the end of the innings at Adelaide on a wicket like that, which has been a really good wicket.
Absolutely,
is the blueprint how to bowl at the death. Lots of people. Yeah, they had some it's quite interesting actually how they would have sat down. And most things a coach. I'm not a coach, but if you got back-to-back games at Adelaide followed by Melbourne or Perth, where the boundaries are completely the other way around, and Brisbane's the same, so very, very wide, but some of them are quite short.
Yep.
Whereas Adelaide is the other way around. It's long but narrow. So how you're going to bowl and the length you're going to bowl does take some detail to do that. So
yeah, and that's I think that's why we were confident the Adelaide ground will suit us because of the pitch, and we prepared really well for Adelaide, and the boys, as David mentioned, they executed their Yorker slow balls really well, and that's where we didn't allow Australia to blow out that total. It was within our distance, and if we had a little bit of luck with that run out, or a little bit of smartness for not losing those 3 wickets after that run out, I think we had the game. We were going neck to neck, and it's just that.
So you could have beaten them. Bangladesh definitely could have beaten them.
True.
And I think if they played against England, to be fair, no, not to be biased, but I think on paper England were a stronger team. So yeah, they dodged the bullet a bit. Australia, I must admit. I don't understand why people, sort of the predictions before a ball was bowled at Australia when in the first 4, I think was quite a wild prediction on the quiet.
Yep.
I totally agree. Yeah, I did it by default. I put Australia into my top 4 by default, but England, India, and Pakistan were always my other 3.
Yeah. And I thought New Zealand. I didn't have New Zealand in there, but New Zealand always do well in those cups, whether it's one day or T20. They always, their preparation, they just find a way to get into finals. But it's just that hurdle that them and South Africa need to get through, win a couple more ICC cups. I think they'd be all right.
Yeah,
New Zealand
Williamson had been injured or not in great form. Definitely Southey and Bolt. I don't know how long they can continue, but they're very consistent. And they've got, and they made some big decisions around Guptill to leave him out and play Allen. Because Guptill's been, worldwide, has been regarded as being probably flatters to deceive a little bit, but on his day he can demolish most people. So, but they're just a steady team, aren't they? They play to their abilities more often than most teams, actually.
Their players play all over the world in every possible tournament. They get great exposure to conditions and ways to play, and that's the impress that New Zealand, a jack of all trades. That's their trait now.
For a
but their wickets are always the same. So sorry, Masha. Carry on.
No, you go. I was just going to say that for a population that size, I mean, their sporting credentials are notable. That's definitely for sure.
Oh, they're a very impressive country, honestly. But I was a bit shocked at how easily Pakistan accounted for them in the semi-final, though. They certainly... But it was, again, Pakistan batting second, was it not? That seemed to be the key to those last few matches. Throw the other team and bowl against them. Squeeze their line-up in terms of their runs and be as miserly as possible, and then control the batting. And that's what they did. England really bowled well, I thought. Being there live, I saw a lot more about the level of control they actually had. Ben Stokes bowled a great line. It was very impressive. Sam Curran was almost impossible to hit off the pitch square. Incredible. He kept getting the ball jagging back into the pads or the... There was a fair bit of bounce in that pitch.
As I said to you before, I know it's a broken record, but his speed of arm action, Norman, is very hard for batsman to work out. So he's clever. He's realised how effective that is. Did you watch every ball motion, or did you watch
Yeah,
the
no, I
whole
did.
game?
Yeah, I did. Yes.
And they had some breaks. You know, his first ball was a wide and wasn't given a wide. And everybody's you know, playing in a final, everybody's nervous. So, and then whatever Rizwan was doing, falling on his head or whatever, that became a very drama. But I know what happened is that he turned his head away when the throw was coming in. So when he landed, he hit himself on the side of the head. But there was all a bit of a drama, and then 4 or 5 medical people run out. And what happened the next ball? He dragged a wide one back into his stumps. So, yeah, that they. But you're right, Norman. They had a plan, and you know, again, people pick at the right team. Rashid hadn't taken a wicket for 4 or 5 games, and I don't care what people say. It's you know, you can't keep getting no wickets at all, and it doesn't erode your confidence from time to time.
Yeah,
and he just got a couple, and like this game, he got a wicket in his first ball, so he was off and flying.
He's got number on Babar as well. Like 4 times he's got him out, and for all 4 times.
Now, how would you, as a batting coach, motion, how would you describe Babar's shot?
He was, I think, to me, looked very surprised how much the ball gripped and turned, and the key thing was that how, if you compare his paces and whatnot, how he adjusted to MCG because it was turning. So he was bowling with lot air, more slower. It was probably in late 70s to early 80s. He didn't bowl anything over mid 80s because he allowed the ball to spin, and that's what he was so hard.
But everybody knows he just spins his googly. You know, you can play him like an off spinner basically. But But he needs to bowl the slow. And the reading of the wickets, and I think that again. The most effective partnerships that I've witnessed, the wicketkeeper has a huge part to play in terms of what pace the bloke has to bowl.
Agree.
But I don't think Bubba, he didn't realise how much it spun, but he also didn't pick the direction of the spin either.
No,
it's unusual for and again, this is stating the obvious that. Whatever level you're looking at leg spinners to bowl with a white ball, because unless people can read the hand action, it's very difficult to read the seam once the ball gets a bit older.
Absolutely.
So even at 19 level, and T20 lends itself, and even in domestic cricket, you're wanting a leg spinner to bowl because the game situation will make it that the batsman has to play some shots, and if he doesn't know where the ball's going, all they do is sweep, because that's the only option they've got.
What did you make of Harry Brooks' series, David?
Well, I've always said to you on this program, I think he's probably one of the most talented young men that we have.
He showed glimpses of it today.
Yeah, and he's not arrogant. He's confident in his own ability, and I think him playing. I don't know how much time he's spent with Joe Root, but there's, you know, if he was going to model himself on somebody, Joe Root's a good guy to model himself on, and he's very similar in disposition as a young man. But in T20, that it can be, if you're coming in where he's coming in, 5 or 6, the game can be dominated by people above you. And actually, I would have said that, and how they deal with Moeen Ali is quite interesting, because when Moeen's hot, he is seriously hot, and he can smash anybody out there. He hits the ball as hard as I've heard anybody hit it. He does run.
He's a lot taller than I thought he was. He's a lot taller than he's a lot more rangier than I thought he was.
Well, the same as Joe Root. I saw Joe Root on Saturday live because he was up at Loughborough, and Joe Root's quite tall. You know, 6'1", 6'2".
Yeah, long levers.
Yeah. So
I gained a lot from watching them live today. I gained a lot from looking at them more closely, and I appreciate what I saw in the England team more than I ever have before. Their fielding, except for one glitch was spot on. They were
Yep.
really aware. They were very good field placements. But it comes down, okay, there's one thing that I'm going to harp on. That's the selections. That was the key to this whole tournament. Teams picking the right players for their teams. India didn't. Australia didn't. South Africa have got no clue. England are right on the money. Pakistan are somewhat close. But that was what the way they picked good sides.
Well, that series against Pakistan was a critical series for England to play in, because you're playing against blokes who can. The opening batsmen were in good form. You've got bowlers. You've got serious pace bowlers. That attack is, as I said to you, halfway. I've said to Norman Motion that if any side could defend 130, Pakistan were the team who could do it. But there was Nazim Shah is a young lad, and he's just he's just finding his way, really. So,
and he's becoming smarter and smarter. I know he got a bit of a tap earlier on, but then he bowled.
He still ended up 4 overs for 29. So his other 2 overs, he must have bowled really well.
Yeah, exactly.
He bowled a beautiful line to Ben Stokes. He had him out almost 5 or 6 times.
Exactly, and same thing with Butler as well. When he had he ramped him one, but other than that, every other delivery play and miss. That line and that length he bowled, that was really good.
He's a prospect, definitely a prospect. But you're asking a lot of any attack. 130. You'd factor in actually a little bit more because of the size of the grounds. Actually, they're not going to be masses of. Well, there might be 3s rather than 4s, so it's marginal. But I thought the Pakistan fielding was really, really good.
Good, yeah.
I think one of the things that didn't happen throughout the whole tournament, and I always sort of think about Ricky Ponting. If you hit it to him at mid wicket or extra cover, he hit more times than not. The number of people who missed was unbelievable. Indians, even this game. Jordan is a really good fielder, and that was hit straight at him. Didn't bobble or anything like that, and he still missed. And most of them say they practice that skill all the time. You just need to do more of it.
I think it was interesting that first over, because wide ball, no ball, free hit, then opportunity run out. It was like it had everything in that first over.
It did,
set up that it's going to be a good game. And it did turn out to be a good game. I think there was a period when everyone was saying, okay, Pakistan have pulled it back, and they did with nice bowling in the middle when Naseem bowled that good over, and then that injury to Afridi. I think people say that there was a gap between ball and runs was getting bigger, but I think that injury to Afridi was a critical time to have that.
Well, he wasn't. I'm not saying he couldn't have been hit for a 6 or a 4 motion, but that's what England were looking for. And obviously, if they had a spinner on, then they're going to do that. But Stokes is very measured. He plays the game situation really well. And the only way that Pakistan could stay in the game was they had to keep taking wickets and had to get him out there.
His number against off spin or leg spin are really good. He loves spin, and that's why they didn't bowl the left arm spinner as well. And then it was a forced sort of 5 deliveries that they had to bowl, and all of a sudden Stokes just jump on the opportunity. And the way that he batted, it was just phenomenal. The way he measured the innings, he knew that it's okay. He's one big over away, and that's it. And that's what he did. One big over, and then.
He was just waiting for the right guy, but I would have said Shahid, if he bowled those 2 overs, I think it would have gone straight to the wire. But they would still have to get Stokes out. But
exactly.
He gave them a bit more opportunity to do that. So that was unfortunate for Pakistan. But his straight hitting motion is he's a fantastic golfer for a start. So hitting the ball straight is not that difficult for him. So.
No, it was
given the weather they had and the weather you had to experience, which obviously impacted on the end result for Afghanistan. I think all in all, I think the tournament's been really good. It's been played on wickets that weren't shirt fronts. It wasn't matter how far you could hit it all the time, apart from probably Adelaide for a little bit. But It was a bit like the sort of the World Cup final of the 50 overs, Norman, that actually they played on a wicket at Lords that just did a little bit and gave the bowlers half a chance and ended up in a fantastic match. If it's 300 plays 300, well, as a bowler, ex-bowler, who wants to watch that? So.
Matthew Hayden's influence on Pakistan was very evident too. He brought them together very well. So,
yeah, is he continuing that role?
I believe so. At least in major tournaments, he is. Yeah.
Well, he probably didn't want to go back to Australia and try and solve their problems. That's for certain.
Well, that's what I think I said the other day. I think there's one thing common, that is the backroom staff both have fast bowling coach and the batting consultant, both from Australia. So you can say that both Aussies.
Well, Mike Hussey has played a lot of cricket, domestic cricket in England, so
in England.
He will know the mentality of the England players. Saker was an interesting choice, I must admit.
Yeah.
Given that,
David Saker, he's great.
Yeah,
Saker's worked in England as well. So Saker's been in England set up, hasn't he?
Well, he was in the main team with Bayliss.
I thought he was bowling coach before that anyway. So, and Modi's fantastic coach. I've worked with him at Cricket New South Wales and Sydney.
Yeah, no, I've met him a couple of times when he was at Glamorgan and he was really popular there. Again, very measured. Didn't get too emotional about things, but knew his stuff. So
yeah, and also
maybe we should get David to be our chairman of selectors for Australia for a while.
So we'll bring him up.
Get my sparring partner at bat, Trevor Holmes. He was very measured as well. I thought we were very similar.
Yeah,
and he's.
And he served a long time for Australian.
Oh, he did it even longer than I did.
Well,
I have a very and it's relevant on today because it's Remembrance Sunday in the UK motion about the First World War, Second World War, or actually this particular one is more to do with the Falklands War because it was 40 years ago. That somebody told me that actually I was the longest serving chairman selected since the Second World War. Well, I'm not quite sure whether that's a compliment or not, really. So.
It is. We had the Remembrance Day on Friday as well here, David. So I thought we would remember on Sunday with the victory for Pakistan, but a repeat of 1992. But it's England by far they had the best balanced team. I think even with Wood and Milan both injured, I think even though England depth and England.
I think they'll be a force for some years to come because it's quite a young team. I think Wood's fitness will always be a bit of an issue. But they've got where would you fit Bairstow in that team, for instance? Milan has got the best average playing T20 cricket in the world, which is amazing. But
you got Roy to come into one day team. You got Bairstow. There's really good few years ahead for England. Despite
the one area that they need to be careful of is the management of Rashid. We're not exactly overloaded with lots of leg spinners. There's a guy called Rayhan Ahmed. No one. He needs to write that down. He actually played the Under-19 World Cup, and he's a guy who got 3 wickets and over against India. It was against India. So, but there's a guy who opens the batting for South Africa Under-19s who played in the IPL. There's a young lad who is exceptional.
You rate him quite high. I can't remember his name.
Is it Brevis or something like that?
Yeah, he seems to be next to AB de Villiers this time.
Yeah. They call him the young AB. So.
Exactly.
But he may not get in the squad because he might not fit the quota. It seems to be so bloody close.
If you're talking about South Africa, Vincent van der Vaart wrote a fantastic article on social media. And his writing on lots and lots of subjects to do with South African sport is very powerful writing. And he did say that they got themselves in a really difficult position as far as the captain, who come back from injury, wasn't really a T20 player. And actually one bowler of their side that was really struggling was Rabada. So he was suggesting then it should have dropped both of them. Well,
Exactly.
that just would have been impossible to do. There'd be phone calls being made to them that you can't do that
No.
because there is a different. I believe this is talking to a South African guy that I know in Bristol. There are different regulations. I know they are relaxed in terms of the international team around black players as opposed to Asian players. And you have to have people with an African background, if that's the right expression. And that's more prevalent in schools than it is actually at the senior level. And that would have been a big call to leave those two out and replace them with Shamsi, the wrist spinner, and another batsman. So I think what was a problem for some sides was the form of the captains. Who were actually struggling form-wise. Because Baba coming into the tournament, he'd scored millions, and he must have averaged 10 in the tournament, or even less.
Exactly.
Same could be said about Sharma. He was struggling as well. So yeah, there's a few of them who were not in the best form, which can happen.
Exactly.
You're going from one day game to another one day game. It's and the longer that goes on, as you would know, Motion, it's difficult to bring new players in because they just haven't had any time in the middle.
Have they announced a player of the tournament?
Sorry?
Have they announced a player of the tournament?
Don't think so.
Haven't seen it. Yeah.
I mean,
Sam Curran for bowler, and then Shadab for all round.
Yeah, I thought Shadab. I was trying to work out who he played for in the UK, but he I assume he'd be playing in the Big Bash. I would imagine he would have attracted.
He's for Hobart Hurricanes. He played sixes for us last year, and now he's gone. Ponting has picked him first pick as in the draft. So he's your.
And he looks a really good team player, Motion. I don't know whether
he's fantastic. I've had an opportunity to work with him. He's a fantastic player. His mannerism, his attitude is really good.
Yeah,
this is sort of calm we're talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because he played.
Is he captain?
He captains Islamabad United in the PSL. I think he will be really. He is one of the leaders that you can see in the team at the moment. So he's one of those guys. So just to update, Sam Curran's been named as the player of the series.
Player of the tournament. Good.
Yeah, Sam Curran.
Well, his
That's
mother.
a huge
His mother was at the ground, so she'll be very excited.
Very exciting. We had his brother in our Sixers team as well for a few years, Tom. Tom's a fantastic lad as well. I've quite enjoyed.
Tom is like his father or late father, because I played with his father.
Fair.
He's
and there's a third Curran, isn't there, as well?
There's Ben, who played a little bit for Northampton.
I've met him actually.
Yeah,
he's in Australia.
He has actually maximised. He had some real issues with his feet when he was tiny, because we used to see them a lot. So they'll have this image of a small Sam Curran walking through the front door, getting a reprimand from his dad for not picking up the camera case in an airport. He managed to leave it there. So, but they're two delightful lads. And yeah, I'm sure their father would, if he could, would be very, very impressed.
No, Tom, I've had experience at Sixers. He's been very well liked personnel in the Sixers change.
He's got a box of tricks when he bowls, doesn't he?
Definitely, he can bat as well.
He's
won with the bat as well, so he's been fantastic for us. And CJ, good to CJ. I've had him. Opportunity with him at Thunder and also at Sixers last couple of years. Yeah, so he's been fantastic as well. So
which franchise are you attached to when it starts?
Sydney Sixers.
Oh, Sydney Sixers, right?
Yeah. So,
you're the head coach of that or not?
He's Greg Shippey, if you know.
Yeah.
So So Shippy's been the head coach for Sixers now, about 5 seasons.
Did he play for Victoria?
Did he? Did, yes, definitely.
Yeah, as a player. Wasn't he opening batsman?
He was, yes, definitely, yeah. But good coach.
Right.
Again,
I think you would be my point of contact then, Motion, that we need some players at Gloucestershire. So we've got you on one side. I've got Klinger somewhere else in Australia looking for people.
Klinger's in New South Wales now. He was with Victoria. Now he's moved to high performance manager in Cricket New South Wales.
Yeah, and I've just spoken to him because we've got 3 guys who are 2 are playing for North Sydney and 1 is playing for Sydney.
Right.
So when are you going back to Sydney? Are you already there?
Yeah, no, I'm going to join Afghanistan now for the Sri Lanka tour, and then when I come back, and when I come back, then the Big Bash will start. So somewhere in mid-December.
Well, I'll give you the names to look out for them because they're like Harry Brook, that type of. They're suddenly. There's a guy called Sheridan Gums, who's a left-handed batsman who's at Surrey, who bats very much like Mark Butcher. There's a guy called Jacob Bethel, who bowls left-arm spin and bats as well. He is what would be described as a white Bayesian, so he speaks with a Barbadian accent. And the other one is also excellent cricketer, James Rue, who keeps wicket and knows batting. So they all played, or the latter 2 played in the Under-19 World Cup. So you could easily see footage of them.
Did you get? Did most? You didn't give me an email because David asked for an email.
Yeah.
Did you?
I'll text you my email.
Well, I broached the subject that we were talking about, Motion, and I certainly didn't get kickback. They all thought it was a wonderful idea. Unfortunately, they get locked into England, have been on reciprocal tours. So if you go to one place, then if you go to Sri Lanka, they always want to come to England. So, and then you've got to fix up fixtures and whatever. So I'm trying to get the powers that be to have one-off tours in the Middle East. Go to a halfway point. So. But to play Afghanistan would be fantastic practice for our guys because
I'll give my email address.
We'll just correspond. Was that it?
And how many emails have you got, Mose? And you must have Cricket New South Wales, Thunder, Sixers, blah blah, Afghanistan, this and.
Yeah, that's easier.
Maybe you just need mosen.shake.com or something.
Yeah, I'll get my own.
So when do you get Norman? When do you get home?
I'm going back to Sydney tomorrow.
Right.
So I've been on the road a bit.
You're going to be in your cafes then, are we? We're going to be talking to you from there.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you go to Sri Lanka, Motion?
So we're going. I'm flying out Monday night, and then we've got a week-long camp in Dubai at the ICC Academy, and then we fly to Sri Lanka on morning of 22nd this month. Right,
I might correspond with you. I just want to know how the country is in terms of safety and things like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought
some of the areas that we've used in the past are just, we're going to the West Indies. West Indies isn't fantastic because they've got no practice facility, but the pound against the dollar is like, God, you wouldn't want to go there. South African air flights are really expensive, though actually when you get there, it's not too bad. So going to Sri Lanka, Middle East, India's not too bad.
They're always good options.
Yeah, so that's where we're heading. So
I thought Norman was going to come to me in Sri Lanka. We're going to Kandy for three 1 days. Beautiful place, Kandy.
Oh, it is.
I love it.
It is. It's nice and tea capital, what they call it. There's a lot of tea.
That's Neurelia. That's Neurelia, not Canberra.
Yeah, that's Neurelia is Little England. They call it.
Little England, yeah, right. That they call that.
But if you're right, have you ever been to Neurelia or not?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Right. Well, look out for the most extraordinary bus journey you'll ever have. If you go by coach, they need 2 drivers because one of the drivers has to get out to steer the coach round the corners,
Right.
and if you look to the right, the drop is just not even worth considering.
Scary. Oh,
Because I had some fun and games. Because if you're on the way up, there's well, you could describe them as cafes, but they're not really. But they're like tea houses or whatever.
rest
So
houses, yeah.
yeah, people stop for a tea. So we've got all these little. Oh, this is actually with Gloucestershire. So somebody like David Lawrence was involved in this, and so. But I'd been to Sri Lanka before, so because my best friend at school was president of the cricket board when they won the World Cup. He was sacked within 3 months because they changed the government, because that's what happens in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
So they were sitting there having cups of tea and water and whatever, and then some bloke came out with baskets. All right, so that there were things moving around in the basket, which were cobras.
Well,
Most you have to go to Tripali's gym and take the team there. Go to the gym.
Is that in Colombo?
Colombo 7, right in the middle.
Yeah. Oh, I will. Let me know. Tee me up. Come and join us, mate. It's only a short trip. Do your program from Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka is the best country. Well, no one's been there a lot, but I would say one of the favourite places.
I will. I'll go there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because of my mother's passing, I haven't gone anywhere. But now that's settling down. Probably over the next few months, I'll make it. I'm going to be there in February next year for sure, and I'll be plonking myself in the subcontinent in the IPL as well. So I'm going to be bouncing around a fair bit in Sri Lanka, India, and the like next year. And I've got an Ashes tour in June, July. Where I'll be
go to the Oberoi, Norman. Have that's in the fish restaurant.
Oh yes.
And they just give you, how would you like it cooked? You know, which type of curries you want it cooked or whatever. It's just fantastic.
Fantastic.
Oh, you're making me hungry thinking about
it. Right.
All right.
Guys, most of you have a good trip. I'll be in touch.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, David, thank you for your efforts. It's been fantastic.
Norman,
but we're going to talk in a few more days about a bit of a debrief with Chris Vernon. If you want to join, you can join them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just keep sending the links. I've got Graham Gooch actually come to stay actually this week. So,
right.
For a couple of days. I rang him actually. I thought he would be doing commentary or doing something because of 92. But he said no, hadn't had the call because the guy. Not to end on a morbid note, but the reason why they were wearing armbands.
Yes, David
English. Have you ever met him, Norman, or not?
I haven't met him, no, but I've heard a lot about him. Have you met him, Moses?
No, I haven't.
No, but he's been in school. I've known him for 30 odd years. Very eccentric guy, but he raised a lot of money for charity. He actually was the manager for the Bee Gees when they were at their peak.
Correct.
So he knows a lot of people within the music industry. He's stuck very close to Beefy most of the time. So yeah, real sad loss. So it's been a sort of sad, interesting, emotional coast ride for 24 hours with him dying, England winning. It does put things in perspective, I must admit, but a sad loss. But anyway, so Norman, you contact me as and when you want.
Okay.
I'll speak to the powers that be and we'll try and continue those discussions.
Love to, David. Thank you very much. We'll do.
All right. Are you going to covering Pakistan versus England, Norman, or not? The Test series.
I'm thinking about it. You're talking about in Pakistan, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's the dates of that?
I think there's the 1st of December or something like that.
Oh, you're tempting me. Dead set, you're tempting me.
But there's also a one-day series against England now, isn't there? 50 overs they're playing.
That's right. There's 3 one-days.
They're playing it here.
Yeah. So if you want to give me a ring on that bit. So.
Oh, gotcha. But I love it. I mean, if I desperately want to go to Pakistan early in the year, which I didn't do, and my mother's situation held me back, but now I can move on from that. And I'm going to be making myself known to the subcontinent more than I have, that's for sure.
Why don't you come to Sri Lanka and then go to Pakistan, Norman? That would be like
That would be
we've
good,
got.
bloody
There's
idea.
good double hits.
Yeah,
I'll give
Oh,
you some
don't
names.
tempt me.
Well, Motion will know the restaurants anyway. So
Oh, definitely.
So how long are you in Sri Lanka for?
We're only there for 11 days.
Right. But I'll let you. I'll get Shapali in contact with you. You got to go to her gym. It'd be good if they can go there. And
Yeah,
you know, and let me tell you something. I mean, you won't need too much help because you'll get treated like kings there. But it's a great place.
Great place, yeah.
and there's a restaurant which is on the beach, Motion, which is by
Mount Lavinia.
yeah, near Mount Lavinia. You cross the railway line, and
Correct.
they sell the best prawns you've ever seen there. It's just
Oh,
the food is
Oh.
exceptional.
Oh, food is great. Yeah.
Gary.
Anyway, it's making me hungry. Talk about it.
Oh,
I'm going to have Sunday lunch. Norman, always great to speak to you. Motion, it's been great to be on the calls.
oh, thank you, David.
I'm glad that you and I have like minds in various issues.
Definitely. Thanks,
See you
guys.
later.
Thanks,
See you
David.
later. Give my best to
Okay,
Trotty when you see him.
I will definitely do that. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah. Bye.
So thank you, and that's wonderful. Those guys have been great to have on my show, both Mosen and David. One of the most wonderful pairing you could ever get. Just been a superb World Cup. I'm really appreciative of the time I've spent with Buria, Debashis, Amit, Sanjay, and all, and Aparna and Rapakshi, and then more recently with Alan Mullally and Tony Rose and David Graveney and Richard Vernon and Mosen Sheikh. It's been an incredible Marcus. It's been wonderful to have all you guys on. We've enjoyed it. And Debashis, Mahadi, thank you for your comments. Arrow, there's best. You've all been great. I've really enjoyed the series. Let's see if we can match that with other tournaments in the future, like the England series, the Test series. It's going to be an ongoing saga of great things. There's a summer of cricket here in Australia. There's the BBL and the IPL next year, and a World Cup in India next year, the 50 over late October, which I'll be there with bells on. All right, guys. I thank you for your time. I hope you realize that we love having you involved in our shows. It's a pleasure to be with you all, I must say. And honestly, there's onwards and upwards is the only way I like to put it. Onwards and upwards. That's the way I describe it. So let's enjoy each other's time. All right, guys. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. So view, like, and share the pages that I have. Subscribe, get notification buttons, all that. So all the best, guys. See you soon. Norman should learn from English. Should, definitely.